Have you ever felt like your body is sending you signals you don't quite understand anymore, especially when it comes to your most private moments? You're not imagining things. After decades of knowing yourself in one way, suddenly, everything feels different. The sensations aren't as sharp, the responses aren't as quick, and you might even wonder if something is fundamentally wrong with you. But here's what nobody talks about. This isn't decline. This is transformation. Your body isn't failing you. It's asking you to meet it where it is now, not where it used to be. And the men who understand this, who learn to adapt and listen, often discover a depth of satisfaction and connection they never experienced in their younger years. This isn't about giving up intensity or settling for less. It's about discovering that real pleasure doesn't come from force or speed. It comes from presence, awareness, and genuine care for the vessel that carries you through life. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room that keeps so many older men silent and struggling alone. There's this pervasive cultural myth that sexuality diminishes with age, that after a certain point, you should just gracefully bow out and accept that this part of life is over. But that's not just wrong, it's actually harmful. Your sexual health is intimately connected to your cardiovascular health, your hormonal balance, your mental well-being, and even your longevity. When men disconnect from their sexuality after 60, they're not just giving up pleasure, they're often giving up on a vital aspect of self-care that keeps multiple body systems functioning optimally. The truth is that regular sexual activity, whether with a partner or through self-stimulation, acts as a kind of maintenance program for your entire reproductive and circulatory system. It keeps blood flowing to areas that need it, helps regulate hormone production, provides stress relief that protects your heart, and even supports prostate health by promoting regular fluid release that prevents stagnation. Think about what happens when you don't use a muscle for months. It atrophies, weakens, loses its resilience. The same principle applies to the complex network of blood vessels, nerves, and tissues that make up your sexual anatomy. When these areas receive regular, gentle stimulation and the resulting increase in blood flow, they maintain their function much better over time. But here's where most men run into trouble. They approach their bodies with the same expectations and techniques they used decades ago, and when those don't work the same way, they either force it harder or give up entirely. Both responses create problems. Forcing it leads to physical damage and emotional frustration, while giving up leads to gradual decline and loss of function that might have been preventable. The middle path, the one that actually works, requires understanding exactly how your body has changed and what it needs now. Let's get specific about what's happening in your body after 60. First, your testosterone levels have likely decreased from their peak, though this varies significantly from man to man. Lower testosterone doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't be sexual. It means your arousal pattern is different. You might need more time, more direct stimulation, more mental engagement. Your erections might not be as spontaneous or as firm as they once were, and that's completely normal. The smooth muscle tissue in the penis becomes less elastic over time, and the valves that trap blood in the erectile chambers don't seal quite as tightly. This doesn't make arousal impossible. It just means you need to work with your body's current capabilities, rather than fighting against them. Additionally, your refractory period, the recovery time needed after orgasm, before you can become aroused again, gets longer with age. This is governed by prolactin release and neurological factors that you can't simply will away. Understanding this prevents the frustration and self-criticism that comes from comparing your current self to your younger self. Your skin is also changed in ways that directly impact sexual sensation. The epidermis becomes thinner and drier as you age, which means less natural lubrication and more susceptibility to friction damage. The nerve endings that create pleasurable sensations are still there, but they're embedded in more delicate tissue that needs gentler handling. Many men don't realize they're causing micro damage during self-stimulation because they're using the same firm grip they always used. But now that grip is compressing nerves, restricting blood flow, and creating inflammation in tissue that can't bounce back as quickly. This creates a vicious cycle. Reduced sensation leads to harder gripping, which causes more damage, which reduces sensation further. Breaking this cycle requires conscious intention to change your approach. And that's not always easy when you've been doing something the same way for 40 or 50 years. Let's talk about the psychological dimension, because this is where many men get completely stuck without even realizing it. You grew up in a time when male sexuality was supposed to be simple, straightforward, and always ready. There was this cultural narrative that real men were always hungry for sex, always able to perform, and never needed to think too deeply about feelings or connection. That narrative did enormous damage because it taught you to approach your own body as a machine, something that should perform on demand without needing care, attention, or understanding. Now, decades later, when your body is asking for exactly that care and understanding, you don't have the tools or the permission to give it. You might feel embarrassed that you need lubricant, or that you need more time, or that you need to set a mood for yourself. You might feel like these needs make you less masculine, when in reality, they make you more connected to your authentic experience. The shame that gets triggered isn't about what you're doing. It's about old programming that says you shouldn't need anything, shouldn't be vulnerable, shouldn't have limitations. This shame doesn't just sit in your mind. It literally changes your physiology. When you feel guilty or anxious during sexual activity, your sympathetic nervous system activates, the same system that governs your fight or flight response. This causes blood vessels to constrict, which is the exact opposite of what you need for arousal. Your body literally cannot relax into pleasure when it's in defensive mode. So all those uncomfortable feelings you might have about aging, about changes in your body, about whether you're supposed to still be doing this, they're not just mental static. They're actively preventing you from experiencing satisfaction. This is why addressing the emotional component isn't some optional add-on for sensitive guys. It's a fundamental requirement for anyone who wants their body to actually function well. You have to create an internal environment of safety and acceptance, or your nervous system will keep blocking the very thing you're trying to experience. Now let's address the first major mistake in detail: rushing through the experience, as if it's something to be gotten over with quickly. This behavior pattern usually develops from years of treating masturbation as a purely functional release, something you do quickly before bed or in the shower, or whenever you have a brief private moment. There's often an element of secrecy or slight embarrassment, even in the privacy of your own home. Even after decades of marriage, you might feel like you're stealing time for something vaguely illicit, so you hurry through it. Or perhaps you've just always approached it as straightforward physical relief without much thought. But when you rush, You're training your body in all the wrong ways. Your breathing stays shallow, which reduces oxygen flow to all your tissues. Your muscles stay tense, which restricts blood flow. Your mind stays partially elsewhere, monitoring for interruptions, or rushing toward the conclusion, which prevents the deep relaxation that makes arousal possible. The biological reality is that arousal is a parasympathetic nervous system response. It belongs to the rest and digest system, not the fight or flight system. You literally cannot be fully aroused while your body thinks it's in a hurry or under threat. This is why men who rush through self-stimulation often report that it doesn't feel satisfying even when they reach orgasm. They're going through the motions without ever dropping into the relaxed state where pleasure actually registers fully. Over time, this creates a disconnect between the physical release and any real sense of satisfaction or well-being. You might find yourself masturbating more frequently, but enjoying it less, because you're never giving your body the time and safety it needs to fully engage with the experience. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require you to challenge some deeply ingrained habits. You need to deliberately slow down, which might feel uncomfortable at first. Take several deep breaths before you even begin touching yourself, consciously relaxing your shoulders, your jaw, your belly. Create even a minimal sense of ritual or intentionality. This isn't just scratching an itch. This is caring for your body. Give yourself at least 15 or 20 minutes instead of 5. Let there be space for arousal to build naturally, rather than forcing it. Notice what you're feeling, both physically and emotionally, without judgment. If your mind wanders to your to-do list or worries, gently bring it back to sensation. This kind of presence might sound simple, but it's actually quite profound. You're teaching your nervous system that this activity is safe, pleasurable, and worthy of attention. Over time, this retraining creates much more satisfying experiences and also makes your body more responsive. The arousal comes more easily, the sensations are more intense, and the sense of completion and relaxation afterward is much deeper. This isn't just about making masturbation more enjoyable, though it does that. It's about maintaining your sexual responsiveness in general, which benefits every aspect of your intimate life. The second mistake, using too much pressure, deserves even more attention because the consequences can be quite serious. As sensation decreases with age, and it does for everyone, this isn't a sign of dysfunction. The instinctive response is to compensate by increasing stimulation. You grip harder, stroke faster, apply more pressure, trying to recreate the intensity you remember from younger years. This makes sense logically, but it's exactly the wrong approach physiologically. The penis is not made of muscle. It's made of specialized erectile tissue called the corpus cavernosum, which is essentially a sponge-like network of blood vessels. When these vessels fill with blood, they create an erection. Surrounding this tissue are delicate nerves and thin layers of skin. None of these structures respond well to repeated compression or friction. When you grip too tightly, you're literally squeezing the blood out of the erectile tissue, which defeats the purpose. You're also compressing the nerves, which reduces rather than increases sensation, and you're creating friction on the skin that leads to micro tears, inflammation, and eventually a toughening or callousing effect that further reduces sensitivity. There's a phenomenon that's been nicknamed death grip syndrome in sexual health circles, though it's not an official medical diagnosis. It refers to the pattern that develops when men train their bodies to respond only to very specific, very intense stimulation, usually a particular grip pressure and stroke pattern that they've used for years. The problem is that this level of stimulation can't be replicated in other sexual situations. A partner's hand, mouth, or body can't provide that same intense, focused pressure, which means men with this conditioning often can't orgasm with a partner or have great difficulty doing so. This creates enormous stress in relationships and deep shame for the man, who often doesn't understand why his body won't respond to partnered intimacy the way he thinks it should. Even more concerning, this constant pressure can cause actual physical damage over time. The blood vessels can develop small tears or leaks. The nerves can become compressed or damaged, leading to numbness or odd sensations. The skin can crack, especially in the frenulum area under the head of the penis, leading to painful sores that take a long time to heal in older men whose tissue repair mechanisms are slower. The solution requires patience and trust, two things that don't come easily when you're worried about your sexual function. You need to deliberately reduce the amount of pressure you use, which will initially feel like it's not enough stimulation. This is where high-quality lubricant becomes essential, not optional, essential. Without it, even gentle touch creates too much friction on aging skin. Choose something natural and unscented, because the skin on and around your genitals is particularly sensitive to chemicals and fragrances that can cause irritation. Apply it generously, more than you think you need. Then consciously loosen your grip to about half the pressure you usually use. The first few times you do this, you might not reach orgasm, and that's okay. You're retraining your nervous system to respond to gentler stimulation. Your brain is learning new pathways. Your nerves are getting the chance to wake up properly, instead of being numbed by compression, and your tissues are getting the blood flow they need instead of having it squeezed out. This retraining period might take weeks, but the payoff is substantial. Men who successfully make this transition consistently report not just more sensation and more satisfying orgasms, but also better function in general. Their erections are firmer because the erectile tissue isn't being damaged. Their sexual confidence improves because they're not fighting against their own body anymore. And many find that intimacy with partners becomes more enjoyable because they're no longer dependent on one specific type of stimulation that partners can't provide. Think of this process as similar to physical therapy. You're healing damage and building new, healthier patterns, and that requires consistency and patience. You might also experiment with varying your technique. Different strokes, different rhythms, different areas of focus. Your entire genital area has nerve endings, not just the head of your penis. Exploring what feels good with this gentler approach can open up new experiences that you never discovered when you were just gripping and pumping with the same routine for decades. The third mistake, ignoring your emotions, might seem unrelated to the physical act, but it's actually the foundation that everything else rests on. Your emotional state directly impacts your hormones, your nervous system, your blood flow, and your ability to feel pleasure. When you carry unresolved shame, guilt, anxiety, or self-criticism about your sexuality, your body registers that as a threat. Remember, arousal is a parasympathetic response. You cannot be simultaneously anxious and fully aroused. The two states are physiologically incompatible. So if you approach self-stimulation with a background hum of, "I shouldn't need this," or "something's wrong with me," or I'm too old for this, or I should be over this by now. You're sabotaging your own experience before you even begin. These thoughts aren't just mental. They trigger cortisol release, which suppresses testosterone. They activate the sympathetic nervous system, which constricts blood vessels. They create muscle tension that restricts movement and reduces sensation. Many men in their 60s and beyond are carrying sexual shame that was planted decades ago, often in childhood or adolescence. Maybe you were raised in a religious environment where masturbation was explicitly condemned. Maybe you were shamed by a parent who discovered you, or teased by peers about sexuality in ways that created lasting discomfort. Maybe you absorbed cultural messages that sex is dirty, shameful, or only acceptable within very narrow parameters. These early imprints don't just fade with time. They get wired into your nervous system's threat detection system. Even though your adult rational mind knows that self-stimulation is normal and healthy, there's a part of your brain still responding as if you're doing something wrong, something that could get you caught or punished. This creates a low-level stress response every single time, which prevents full relaxation and enjoyment. Beyond these old wounds, there's also the shame that can come from aging itself. Your body doesn't look the way it used to. Things don't work the way they used to. You might need reading glasses to see anything clearly. You might have a belly that wasn't there before. You might have scars or age spots or sagging skin. All of this can trigger feelings of inadequacy or embarrassment, even in private. You might avoid looking at yourself, avoid touching yourself in caring ways. Treat your body as something disappointing, rather than something worthy of pleasure and attention. Breaking through this emotional barrier requires conscious work, but it's some of the most important work you can do for your overall well-being. Start by simply acknowledging what you feel, without trying to change it immediately. If you notice shame, just notice it. I'm feeling shame right now. If you notice anxiety about your performance or your body, acknowledge that too. This simple act of witnessing your emotions without judgment begins to create some distance from them. You're not your shame. You're someone who sometimes feels shame, and there's a crucial difference. Then start actively cultivating self-compassion, which research shows is far more effective than self-esteem for creating lasting psychological well-being. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a good friend. When critical thoughts arise, "You're pathetic. You should be past this. Something's wrong with you." Actively counter them with gentler perspectives. "I'm human, and all humans have needs. My body is doing its best. I deserve care and pleasure at any age." This isn't just positive thinking. It's literally rewiring the neural pathways that govern your self-perception and stress response. Consider talking to someone about these feelings, if they're particularly strong. This could be a therapist who specializes in sexuality or aging, a doctor who takes a holistic approach, or even a trusted friend who's mature enough to have these conversations without judgment. Many men suffer in complete isolation with these issues because they've been taught that real men don't talk about feelings, don't admit vulnerability, don't need help, but that isolation makes everything worse. When you can speak honestly about your concerns and hear that they're normal, that other men experience the same things, that there are solutions and pathways forward, it provides enormous relief. You realize you're not uniquely broken or pathetic. You're just human. dealing with universal aspects of aging that affect everyone, but that nobody discusses openly. This recognition alone can shift your entire relationship with your body and your sexuality. Creating a healthy self-pleasure routine involves integrating all of these insights into a practical approach that honors your body's current needs. This means establishing some basic guidelines that support rather than stress your system. First, hygiene matters more as you age because your immune system isn't as robust and your skin is more susceptible to infection. Wash your hands before touching your genitals. Use clean towels or tissues. And consider showering beforehand if you're going to explore beyond just penile stimulation. The anal area in particular requires careful hygiene. If you're interested in prostate massage, which many older men find helpful for prostate health and adds a different dimension of pleasure, choose a time when you won't be rushed or interrupted, even if that means planning ahead or communicating boundaries with others in your home. Create an environment that feels comfortable. Temperature, lighting, privacy, whatever helps you relax. This isn't about elaborate production. It's about removing obstacles to relaxation. The lubricant choice deserves emphasis because it makes such a significant difference. Water-based lubricants are safe for all purposes and easy to clean up. Silicone-based lubricants last longer and feel more slippery, which some men prefer, though they're harder to wash off. Avoid anything with fragrances, flavors, warming sensations, or numbing agents. These all contain chemicals that can irritate aging skin or mask important feedback signals. Apply lubricant generously to your entire penis and your hand, reapplying as needed. Don't ration it. This is a vital tool for protecting your tissue. As you begin touching yourself, maintain that focus on gentle pressure and slow movement. Pay attention to your breathing, keeping it deep and relaxed, rather than shallow and hurried. Notice the sensations without chasing the orgasm. Let arousal build naturally. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to what you're feeling. This mindful approach transforms the experience from a mechanical act into something genuinely nourishing. Listen carefully to your body's signals throughout. Pleasure should feel good, not just at orgasm, but throughout the process. If something hurts, stop and adjust. If you notice swelling, unusual redness, persistent soreness, or any discharge, these could indicate infection, inflammation, or other issues that need medical attention. Don't tough it out or assume it will resolve on its own. Prostate problems, urinary tract infections, skin conditions, and circulation issues are all more common after 60, and catching them early makes treatment much simpler. Your doctor has heard everything and won't judge you. Sexual health is a legitimate medical concern. If you're experiencing erectile difficulties, that could signal cardiovascular issues that need attention. If you're having pain during or after ejaculation, that could indicate prostate inflammation. Your sexual function is connected to your overall health, so problems in this area often provide early warning of other issues. As you develop this more mindful, caring approach to self-pleasure, you might notice benefits that extend far beyond the act itself. Many men report sleeping better on nights when they've had an orgasm because the hormones released, particularly prolactin and oxytocin, promote relaxation and sleep. Stress levels often decrease because you're giving yourself regular nervous system resets that calm the chronic, low-level anxiety many people carry. Some men notice improved mood and reduced irritability, likely due to the endorphin release and the simple fact that they're doing something pleasurable for themselves regularly. Physical tension in the pelvic floor and lower back often decreases because you're bringing awareness and blood flow to these areas, and sexual confidence generally improves, which can positively impact intimate relationships, even if those relationships don't include partnered sex. When you feel comfortable and confident in your own body, that shows up in how you interact with others. If you're rediscovering self-pleasure after a long break, whether due to illness, relationship changes, grief, or simply having disconnected from this part of yourself, know that there's no timeline or pressure. Some men find their way back gradually over months. Others decide to deliberately recommit to regular self-care, including sexual self-care, and establish new patterns relatively quickly. Either path is valid. Your body will respond to the attention and care you give it now, regardless of how long it's been since you last checked in. Think of it as beginning a new relationship with yourself, one based on current reality rather than past expectations, one grounded in curiosity and kindness rather than judgment or demand. This new relationship acknowledges that your 60-plus-year-old body has different needs, different responses, and different capabilities than your 30-year-old body did. And that's not just okay. It's natural and right. The goal isn't to recapture your youth or perform at some imagined standard. The goal is to maintain connection with your body, support its ongoing health, and yes, experience pleasure, which is your birthright at any age. When you approach self-pleasure with the 3 principles we've discussed, slowing down instead of rushing, using gentle pressure instead of force, and addressing emotions instead of ignoring them, you create conditions for genuine satisfaction and long-term sexual health. This matters not because you need to prove anything to anyone, but because your quality of life improves when you feel connected to your body, when pleasure is accessible to you, when you're not carrying shame or disconnection in this fundamental area of human experience. Your body still matters deeply. Your pleasure still matters. Your intimate life, whether solo or partnered, still matters. These things don't have expiration dates. They evolve. They transform. They ask for different approaches, but they remain essential parts of being fully human and fully alive. The men who thrive in their later decades are often those who've learned to meet themselves with compassion, who have adapted their expectations and techniques to match their current reality, and who've refused to let shame or outdated ideas cut them off from this vital source of well-being. You can be one of those men. You already are, simply by seeking information and being willing to consider new approaches. That willingness to learn and adapt is the key to everything else.